contribute, question, and so on and so forth.
There's always some lines we'll say like that line's strict, but there are points where if you go, oh, I prefer to say like this, I'll go, yeah, we'll say like that, it's fine. Because I don't want, because, you know, a script is, it's like an introduction, it's just, this is the structure, but everything else is like the ingredients being thrown in, so you get cinematography going in there to elevate the script, and then of course the performance, and if the performance wants to go in a certain way, this will make the film better. Let the actor go.
You know. And alternatively, there are directors who say, "Well, look, I've got the script. I've got a very clear idea of exactly what this looks like and sounds like, and I've thought long and hard about the exact wording." So,
yeah, man.
So, do you mind if I just ask you a couple of questions?
No, not at all.
So, how did you sort of get involved with this project?
Well, I first met Sam through one of the things that I do in town is I do work with the South Sea Shakespeare Actors, and we recently did a version of Hamlet in town, and the director wanted to use some video to kind of to fit into the stage performance, and it was Sam who was largely responsible for putting that together, so that's where I met him. And then I saw that he posted in a Facebook page called Portsmouth Acting Jobs that he was looking for somebody a bit older to play a part in a short, and sort of knowing him, and I like short projects because you're not committing a lot of time to it, but they're usually interesting enough to get involved, and having worked with him before, I knew that I could work with him, so I just said, you know, do you want to consider me? And that's about.
So have you done kind of video or film work before?
I've done a fair bit of more kind of quite a few short films, and one feature. So, yeah, enough to kind of know the ropes a bit.
Yeah. And was that with local filmmakers again, or was that elsewhere?
No, not all of it. Some of it's in London, some of it's in, where else? Bournemouth. I've done some for the Bournemouth University, and so around and about, yeah. But for something like that, I wouldn't necessarily want to travel too far unless it was something special. You know, somebody said, "Well, will you come to Edinburgh, work for nothing for one day?" Probably not, really.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? So, I mean, what drew you to this project? Is it literally just sort of Sam's reputation, or the script as well?
Just, you know, when I saw it, I didn't know anything about the film at all, and he said. The post in Facebook just said, looking for, are there any older actors out there or something, just saying how we hooked up on this one. And I know, I mean, it can be quite tricky in provincial towns. There are quite a lot of young people around who are willing to act, but not always kind of older actors. So
older and wiser.
Older and wiser. Well, no, just so, you know, quite casually, I just said, well, you know, I don't know exactly how much older, and you know whether I fit. And he seemed to think that was a good idea, so that's how we've ended up.
And how are you local or?
I'm Southsea, yeah. So there is quite a little scene, isn't there?
Got like Riyadh, Slough Spring.
Yeah.
Dan, video made. Like and Clive, they did their own films. This guy did Fratton films, still being edited.
Right.
Jack Surley. So yeah, there's a guy called Steve Bull who does some horror stuff in Gosport. So there is a scene developing. I mean, one thing which is kind of weird, because you've been doing this documentary for a while, one of the first things we were talking about is support the scene, blah, 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 blah. Recently, we've reviewed this side. And it's more like, you got to make decent films and then support each other, but the scene develops from the good films.
Yeah.
Rather than what I was hoping was that anyone should make films and get some good stuff out of it. from working with certain filmmakers now, I've realised that ain't the case. There are certain people who are antagonists towards the film scene
Right.
because their ego creeps in more than skill, and nowadays it is more about.
Do you think it's all ego?
It's not. No, it's like.
Because I've often wondered what makes people anti. You know, it's like, as far as I'm concerned, live and let live. You know, it's like.
I think it's weird. It's not so much ego. It's more like if you want someone to work with you and then you work with them, and then they do work with you for a bit, but then you're thinking, oh, I can get more out of them, and then you don't get that because they become busy with something else. That kind of thing makes you go anti towards the person because they think it's ignorance,
Right.
rather than the case of everyone's very busy and you can only fit in everything at certain points. Like the person in question that I'm talking about, well, I mentioned name, but we're busy now until the end of September, and then we're in editing and then we're in preparing for next year. He really wanted to do a film in September. I was like, well, we can't do that. Can't drop everything and do this film because, for one, we don't know what the film is. You don't fully explain it to us. And secondly, we've got to finish our own projects.
Well, that's a kind of emotional maturity issue that could exist in any kind of aspect of life, isn't it? That somebody thinks that because you've done some work with them, that you're suddenly going to be able to drop anything else that you're involved with in order to go and help them. They can't understand that that's quite likely to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that, because I mean, I've done stuff like that before, where I've worked with someone and wanted to work with them again and not work with me straight away, and I'm like, what's that about? Like, waiting on certain film edits and being like, this is taking bloody ages. Not in reference to something else. But then you just look at what they're doing, you go, this guy's got so much going on. If he's delayed my film, it's a fault on his side for me to be choosing that person. But I know it's going to be good in the end, so I might just wait it out.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you're busy with your own stuff, just then focus on that and then go, oh, well, that one's over there somewhere. That'll eventually come back over here. But it's just difficult. If you're doing just one film and you've got someone else working on it and they can't give you the time, I can get why you'd be like, well, this is my only project. Some people don't like to juggle hundreds of things. Like I, for some reason, love to juggle about 15 different projects at once. Whereas Tom won't do that. Tom would want to focus on one project.